Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome, everybody. So glad you could join me today. It's a super day. We've got a great book we're going to be talking about. It's called Dare to Dream, This Life Counts. And it's for those of you who are serious, who seriously want to achieve something very special. We're not necessarily talking about night dreams as much as dreaming of things you want to do with your life, but both apply. So pay attention for those dreamers. This is a marvelous book. It's by Debbi, Dachinger, an authoritative and prolific lady who has made her life's journey pursuing her own dreams while acting as a teacher and inspiration to many. As a thought leader, she provides stories and demonstrations for how you can get to the promised land where your dreams really can come true. One of the phrases that I pulled out of her material that I think is so important and everybody should pay attention to is, if you were given the dream, you were given the power to make it come true. And that's so absolutely true. And this is so inspirational and exciting because it gives you the tools to really work on making them come true instead of saying, well, someday. It tells you how to get there. So without a hesitation, welcome to the show, Debbi. I'm so glad you're here today.
Me too, Barbara. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this because I put this book out some time ago. I don't get to talk about it too much. These days, when I'm being interviewed, it's always about extraterrestrials, shamanism, channeling, all this sort of stuff. But this book that you're talking about, Dare to Dream, was the inception for me. So it's got a big place in my heart.
Well, it's important. I mean, all those other topics are great, and I'm going to have you back to go into all of them as well. But today, especially because so many people are at crossroads, it feels as though the pandemic sent everybody back to square one, and it's let's reinvent ourselves. Let's get into a new aspect of life. Let's pursue some of the things that we always dreamed we wanted to do but haven't been able to. And your book gives them the how-to. And the stories of how you've used it are amazing. And I've often said to people, you create your reality by your perception of it. And you give them tools in which to change the way they're looking at things so that they can manifest what it is that's going on inside of them. So what prompted you to actually write this book? Was it that you were so successful in doing what you wanted to do that you wanted to share it with others? Is that how this all came about?
Yes, and yes, okay. I realized I know how to create dreams. Once I taught myself and then replicated it over and over and over again, the same system that you read about, I was very excited to share it. So I had started a radio show 18 years ago in Burbank, California. I was in a terrestrial radio, and I had a talk show called Dare to Dream. And a couple of years into doing the show, I thought, how can I reach more people? And I thought, well, a book is a beautiful venue. People anywhere in the world can pick it up. And in an hour show, I can take everybody through the how-to plus all the stories and illustrations, but I can do it in a book. And when I put this out, so I think that book is 14 years ago, 13 years, something like that, because I followed it up with another book called Wisdom to Success, a very different book, with loads of stories in that one. And I was really in like a mission at that point. I want to reach the most people because I knew what it was like to feel locked out of a dream, but to have a dream. And then I had the experience of desiring something and then understanding how to create it and bring it to fruition. So that book was really like my love letter to the idea of living a dream out loud, and also a door opener for anybody who wanted to walk through that door too.
Well, I love, the statement of if you have a dream, you also have the power to bring it into manifestation. And I happen to, that's my belief as well. It's a matter of putting the steps out there. And one of the things you talk about is meditation, and how just a 15-minute meditation every day helps you to sort of gather the strength, the power, the insight, the wisdom. And meditation, and I say this a gazillion times, is listening, is allowing things to come to you, as opposed to, it's not prayer, it's listening and seeing what the spirit inside of you is helping you to work on. And I think that what you've done is you've made it such a simple procedure, and yet there are steps. There are steps that you take, and the one that you stress over and over, of course, is writing things down, which is very important. And so many people, I tell people to get a journal and write stuff down, and don't make it deep, dark secrets that you don't want anybody to see. But if you get an inspiration, put it down. If you get a thought, put it down. If you find a good recipe, put it down. Just make sure that you're writing things down, because that anchors that thought, that wish, that dream into reality, and it creates a channel between you and the higher consciousness, the spirit that you carry within. So the spirit knows what you want to work on. And then synchronicities happen and coincidences happen. And it's not that easy. There are more steps, but the steps aren't that difficult. So when people are, writing down what they want to become and things like that, what happens when they run up against, their own insecurities and, I can't do that, but I don't know if I'm talented enough, but how do you suggest that they work with those doubts and those insecurities?
Yeah, it's twofold. I mean, on the one hand, it's information.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes up, I can't because, and we fill in the blank, those are things that are coming up not to become obstacles, and not because they're real, but they're coming up to be healed. They're just begging to be paid attention to, and to say, God, I probably have shown up every time you wanted to create many things in this realm, or probably others that matter to you. And so I've been the one throwing you off course. But it's like the loud kid, if you'll finally pay attention to me and really see what I'm offering you here, this is where the wound is. So it's beautiful, because if we deep dive into that, we can heal it, so it doesn't have to keep showing up. Now, there's a part B to this, and that is the mind likes to get involved. The mind likes the how, right? I want to go do something, and it's extraordinary, and I've never done it before. And then the mind likes to throw up, well, how are you going to afford that? How are you going to take off the time? How are you going to create that? How are you going to add that to your life? How are you going to change things to accommodate somebody else? All these things that make us feel afraid and make us feel convinced, oh, well, that is the voice of reason. Clearly, I can't do it. But instead, I recommend that we bless the how. Thank you so much for sharing. I understand you're trying to protect me, but I can't live in the how and create a dream. So, what I know about energy is that it usually doesn't lie. And I'm a big follower of energy because if it shows up for me, it's pointing me in a direction that is right for me.
Right.
Now, if I get into the hows, I'm all over the map and I'm discreating what it is I really desire. And so, one example of this is when I had a very, very profound awakening 6 years ago, quite unexpected. And in this awakening, the divine came and kept giving me information about myself because at the time I didn't understand why she was telling me beautiful things about myself, but I didn't understand. I thought of myself as this particular way, these particular adjectives, but she was using extraordinary words, including shamanism. Like, you're a shaman. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So when this extraordinary awakening was complete, and it took 4 days, she wasn't going to let me go. I dove deep into, well, what does that mean? What is a shaman? And once I was complete there, I became a journalist. I researched. And as part of the research, you can only go so far. I needed experience. So I wanted to enroll in a course. I looked at a huge course with a very famous shaman, and his particular program, which was worldwide, was 6 months. You had to get accepted to this program. I was told right away, this is going to add 30 extra hours to your week for 6 months. And here I am thinking, but I'm a coach, I'm a healer, I'm a mommy to 2 dogs, I'm a partner, I'm all of the life stuff. I'm a podcaster. How in the world? But that was the how. And so I said to the how, I can't actually focus on you and create a dream. So even though you think you're making a lot of realistic sense, I'm going to put you to the side. I'm going to focus on the energy. The energy's excited about the prospect of doing this program. I was accepted to the program and I jumped. And so for 6 months, I was immersed in something that absolutely changed my life. I went there for the information, but it completely changed who I was. My dear friends to this day will say, that was a litmus. That was a reference point in your life of switching timelines. You are not even the same individual. Because I was doing all these healing practices and trading and learning something that it became clear I had been a shaman in many, many lifetimes. This was something I knew as a soul. And because I didn't focus on the how, I completed all the exercises. It was a lot. And I graduated. And then that became a reference point. I can do this. So I then went on to do the next course, because I was really hungry for information and for experience. So that's one example of how I could have really looked at all the limitations, what it cost, what it was going to cost me in time, all the things. But the energy was a yes. Mm-hmm. And so when I blessed the how, trying to protect me, but I went with what the energy was pulling me forward into, it manifested beautifully and changed my life. It was the right thing to do. And so I know that for myself and others, when the how comes up, you can do a deep dive, you can look at what needs to be healed, or you can just move forward and just say, I'm going to focus on this because I'm excited about it. And I feel it will be a contribution to me.
Well, and it's sort of like I tell people often that free will is free. However, there are always consequences and you're responsible for them. And it sounds like, you went with your gut and it worked out. And that's amazing. I know that there have been times in my life when the same type of thing happens. It's like, I'm doing this, and the universe helps you. The universe is there and it opens the doors. And There have been times when it's like, I have to do this. I'm not sure how, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
So, you lead and I'll follow, because, this is something that's meant to be. And I think so many people are so locked into the physicality, the ego, the day to day, that they don't give themselves the credit for how powerful they truly are, and how they can truly change their life and change their focus and move ahead. It's not always a matter of money. It's a matter of having the courage to move forward, even though you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Now, this is talking spiritually here. This is not talking about robbing a bank. Although you could probably apply it to robbing a bank, and you might be able to get away with it at least once. But then
Don't take the chance. Please don't take the chance. And you won't feel good. You won't have good karma. I don't agree with that, really. But I do want to say, also there's, like, language is very important in all of this. I literally, and I'm in process right now, to be super clear. I'm not on the other side of a situation, but I have an animal who is a soulmate, and out of nowhere a few months ago got very sick. It has been an expensive journey. $15,000 in 3 months, and about $300 a month in medication. And I recently learned that there is a procedure she can have done out of country. That procedure, it's 20,000, but you have to live in the country, and all told is 30 to 40K. And then there's another possibility. It's a different option, and I'm not sure. I'm still in process, like I said. So I want to tell you, because this is so raw for people looking for an example. So I'll tell you 2 things that I'm doing right now in this situation. And it's a little bit different than a dream, but you might say, I dream of my baby being perfectly healthy. And I would do for her what I would do for a child or any kind of beloved. I would be their advocate in any way. And so the price tags we're talking about, they're a lot of money. And I was talking to my sister-in-law, and I literally said, because, a lot of people said to me, well, you know what, actually, this is a very triggering conversation. You should see the things that people say. But unless you're an animal person and your animal's going through the same thing, then they totally get it. Because this is actually very prevalent, what I'm talking about in smaller dogs. So she said, like, wow, Debbie, like, that's a lot of money. And you've already spent a lot of money. And so I said, yeah, that's one way to look at it. But, like, I love Shelby. That's my dog. That's my baby. And I just feel like it's going to work out. I can't get in the how would I get that money? How am I going to fly to Japan? How am I going to take a month off? Like, that stuff works itself out. I really believe that. Literally, I got off the phone with her. I am not kidding. And I got an email saying, that conversation, we're depositing $10,000 into your bank account. And I went, thank you, goddess. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the other piece is that for me, it's very easy to get reactive when you love somebody, yourself, anybody, and something's going on and the whole drama. But I choose to stay wide and back, because the more wide and back I am, the more information can come to me. And it will become clear. I do not know in this moment what course of action I will take, but I don't have all the information. We have another doctor appointment, August 11th, I'll find out more. I always have questions. I have a journalist's mind, so I'm always curious. But those questions will help me best understand. And then I'll either know or I'll sit with it, till I know. So every dream is different. Every situation is different, but we take the how and we put it aside. There is infinite abundance everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. and I painted a deck of cards called the Cosmic Deck of Initiation 33 years ago. And it was published for 30 years or 20 years. And then the publisher stopped publishing it. And I kept saying, well, I would like to, republish it. It should be republished because people are trying to find it and it's not available. And the publisher said, well, I'll do 6,000 decks for you and he told me a price, and it was like, first of all, I don't have room for 6,000 decks.
Right.
And it was a non-reality, but I kept saying, I want to republish them. I'm going to republish them. I'm just not quite sure how and when, but they are going to be republished. And I had someone on the show that I was interviewing, and we were chatting after the show, and he mentioned the cards, and I said, yeah, they're not available anymore. I really want to republish them, but I'm not quite sure how to go about it because, there is the element of money involved, and I'm on a fixed income. And he said, Barb, I'm a publisher. I'll publish them for you free of charge. And
I know 6,000 decks sitting in a closet somewhere, cat furniture. Like,
oh my goodness, that. And so they've been republished and they're out there now. And there's a book that I wrote that went with them. And again, it was not because I had, I had thought it would be a good idea at the time I did them, but it was 33 years ago. And 33 years in somebody's spiritual evolution makes a big difference. And the book that goes along with them now is profound and spectacular. And I couldn't be more proud of it. And that's published separately. There is a little white book with a deck, but it's sort of like things when you put it out there. It's not someday I want to. It's I'm going to. It happens. The universe rolls up its sleeves and says, "Okay, let's throw things her way." She's open to almost anything, clearly, and they just manifest beautifully. So it's a matter of believing. And I think as soon as you start believing something is coming to you, it's not coming, it's there, and living it as a reality. And I just think your book has been so profound for people on a spiritual journey who are starting out, who aren't into it up to their shins or whatever. They're wanting to work with the energy and understanding the energy and how they can put it to work within their life. And your book is how to. There are exercises there, and you leave places where they can fill in the blanks. And it enables them to, you almost hold their hand as they go through the process. And it just feels as though it helps them to stretch their power, because we are such powerful beings. And so many people don't understand the power that we have within us that, we give away or we don't claim. And your book makes it so easy to recognize inside of ourselves that we have the power to make these things happen.
Yeah. I've had on my bucket list for so long to go to Spain. I once heard somebody somewhere talk about Spain. I remember it was a male, and he said what I loved was the architecture. And in my mind, I just imagined this old, beautiful architecture. And I thought, I want to go experience that. I love that. And I love learning the history of places. And I have been so many places, and other places because I speak a lot. I've been a lot out of country, so I've gotten to see other countries because of speaking, never Spain. And I have a very dear friend who's Hungarian, and she moved to Barcelona.
Oh.
And so how does it get any better than that? She said, come visit. So in a couple of months, I booked my trip already. I'm going to go visit her. And she said, look, we'll do Barcelona, but if you come longer, we can then leave and go see other towns. So yeah. I'm going for a longer trip so I can see more of Spain. So that's another dream. Just recently I manifested, and something that feels very beautiful about that is that I didn't do anything. It existed. And every time my partner says, oh, I want to go, and he names a different place, I always throw in there, but it was Spain. Spain's at the top of my list.
Yeah.
And it's like the universe just shuffled the cards so that I can go do this. And I'm so grateful and so excited to go do that.
Well, I think when we follow our dreams, when our dreams, and we're not talking especially nighttime dreams as much as dreaming what we'd like to do with our life and move ahead with our life and go with, as far as talents and skills and things like that. I know that because I've been in this field for so long, I do follow those hints that the universe gives me. And gosh, 5 years ago, I was an East Coast person. I lived in New York and Connecticut forever. And my son had flown, he was going to Boston he's a lawyer for something. And he stopped and took me out to dinner, and we're sitting at dinner. And I looked at him and I said, I think it's time I sold the house and moved. And he said, okay, where are you moving to? And I said, Nashville. And he said, Mom, when did this occur? I said, just now. And he said, okay. And the next day I listed the house, knowing it was going to sell. Now, a year and a half later, I had spent a year and a half on multiple listings. And I knew the house was going to sell. So I started packing it up immediately. I was washing linens and packing them. I was doing this and packing them and sticking them in my garage. Note to people, if you're going to do something foolish like that and you've washed all your linens and put them in the garage, suddenly you will discover that you only have one pair of sheets and one towel and one washcloth and not be able to find them again. So that was the only downside. So the condo that I have now was reduced after a year and a half on multiple listings. I found it. I called John and I said, this is where I have to be. And he said, well, do you want to fly out and look at it? And I said, no, that's my house. Tell them, I gave him the number. I said, tell him it's all cash and tell him, I want it. And he said, well, they took it. And I said, of course they did. So he flew out during the pandemic, got me, drove me west. And first time I saw it was when I walked in it. And it felt like home. It's like 3,000 square feet. It's a big condo. And he said, are you sure you belong here? And I said, yeah, I do. And about a week later, I was walking around, only 14 units, and I was seeing what people had done with their little bitty yard. It's so cool. I have a graveyard in my backyard, and it goes back to the 1700s. And I was so thrilled. There was one tombstone I could read, just one. And a friend and I started to do genealogy on it just to see what they were up to. This man had a sister who lived down here. She was married to a man. Now here's, I'm glad you're sitting down. His name was Aaron DeLong. He's an ancestor of mine.
Wow.
And I called my son. I said, I'm more Southern than you are. I have kin buried in the backyard. And he said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I can trace him on the family tree. And it was like, you belong here. You're home. Now, I would never have said that Nashville was my home. Never. But after over 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, after 70 years of being a New Yorker, it turns out that, home was where I really ended up here. So it was trusting the gut, saying, this is where I belong. This is where I need to be. Had nothing to do with my son that happens to be here too, but I have family here. Family was here. So it was kind of like, okay, I truly belong. And it's a matter of following those feelings, following those urges. not when it comes to buying things, because I'm bad at that, because, that I want it, I need it, I may not need it, but I really want it. I want it enough to need it. So I can talk myself into almost anything. But when it comes to the universe saying it's time to do this, or look in this direction, or consider this, I always say yes. And I tell people, always say yes unless it's against the law, because you never know where your higher consciousness, your spirit, is going to move you, is going to draw you. And it feels to me is that, that you're that way with your little dog. You just, is it cancer that he's got?
It's a she.
A she.
And it is heart disease. It's pretty big time heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
So they do an open heart surgery in Japan with a 98% success rate. And I just read today, which was really very surprising for me, that 90% of little dogs will get heart disease and eventually fatal. I had no idea. So she's young enough that this could ostensibly give her back 5-6 years of her life. So
that's worth anything.
Right. Exactly.
I'm a cat and dog person too. So, I have shoved myself into debt a number of times with animals.
Well, I won't do debt. I won't have to do debt. I feel that very strongly. I will be okay. And this will all, I just feel like it's all going to fall into place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know what it's like to worry. Trust me. If anybody's like listening to this and going, oh, she has no idea. Oh, I do. I came from a family who are professional worriers and reactors. And I know what it was like as a kid growing up amongst that. And I didn't like it. As a child, you are inherently joyful. You're inherently full of life and wonder. And so for me to be around that wasn't 24/7, but it was a lot. And so there was a lot of darkness in that for me to navigate. And I know what that's like. And then I know what it's like to replicate that and pretend like that's normal. And that doesn't work either. It's terrible. So, it's a lot of healing over the years, and a lot of new choices, and a lot of feeling what is it like to be in flow? What is it like to just know that I know everything's going to be okay? And then living in that space has been really informative, So that's just where I am. And I mean, Shelby is an angel, and she has got the angels on her side. She's on new meds. She's here with us right now. She's on new meds because we saw an amazing cardiologist, and he put her on something that she can run again for the first time in 5 months. And she jumps on the bed, she's back, So, but I'm also realistic that this doesn't get better, and that there are decisions that will have to be made. So the rest of it, I allow myself to be in whatever wisdom needs to come. And it's everything between because of my researching, I will come with a list of questions. Yeah. And the cardiologist is always like, Debbie, we have 20 minutes. And I'm like, here's the questions. But you have to answer all of them, because the more you tell me, the more I'm edified, the more I'll gain clarity. And I don't know if you guys are into human design, but I'm a 2/4 generator, and everything here is open in my chart. And so that just means I have to sit with the wave until I know. But when I know, I know. Yeah. So I trust that too, my rhythm.
That's amazing. I think one of the other areas that you went into that I was profoundly affected by was how you talked about anger and anger, and how people who held it in made themselves heavier, and it was harder to spiritually move ahead if you had the heaviness. So it was appropriate to let it out, to scream it out or do it out, whatever, and get rid of it, rather than holding it in and being a mature person and not reacting. I have found that is so true, that if you can spew it, you can dig a hole in the ground and spew it into the hole and then fill the hole back up. But those who hold on to the anger and anxiety and stuff like that make themselves heavier. It's harder for spirit to move through them, with them, and to enlighten them if they are weighting themselves down. I thought that material was just fascinating.
I'm a big believer in I just want to preface it by saying, that I'm careful with things like that because I'm clear about who's in front of me, especially if it doesn't belong to them. So I don't just, let things fly, but I have my ways. Feelings are important. We have them. There are other beings in the galaxy who admire us greatly. They do not love like we love. They do not feel like we feel. There is great reason why we were built like this. And it was certainly not to push those things down. A lot of us had that modeled, but it's not healthy. So when I needed to grieve, because I had been 3 months taking care of Shelby, my dog, and it was building and building and building and building, this caretaking. Then I took a trip, and I found the first day of the trip, I had emotions right here, right to my waterline. And I realized my fear is that she's going to die while I'm on this trip, and I've got someone taking care of her. And I was able to get the help I needed. We all need that. And there was a woman who was just remarkable. This woman who channels an extraterrestrial being. He saw, he knew, he understood everything that was going on. And he allowed me to gestalt, meaning to release the grief. There was a lot of grief. And I just sobbed and sobbed. And then he ran energy through me. That was another story. That was a Kundalini. But that moment turned a corner for me into stasis. Like, I'm okay now. I needed to release that. So there's that aspect. There's another aspect, which is being able to have mercy with other people. That people do stupid shit all the time because they're just unaware, right? And to remember that like 95% of the time, people are not doing something to hurt us. They're just not thinking. And you have to remember, you want mercy for your faux pas, you want to give mercy. But I always communicate. I don't even swallow that. And it happens with people where I'll say, hey, this went down. That didn't feel so good. Please, in the future, I'd really appreciate if you do XYZ instead, because I love you and I care about this relationship. I couch my communication that way because when someone says, hey, can I talk to you? Or I need to talk to you about something. You got a few minutes? All of that stuff, what happens to all of us is we get scared. It's like that old thing about being a kid when someone wants to pull you in front of the room, or your mom or dad, or nobody needs that. But to have someone say, I love you, you mean so much, and this wasn't so okay. This didn't go down well with me. And here's why. I keep this stuff super simple, right to the point, and then I send it off. And I tell you, people send me back hearts and things like that because it's able to be digested. It is receivable on the other end. So yes, anger, any of the big feelings that throw us off course, they're there for a reason. They're there to show us what's okay, what's not okay with ourselves too, because we can piss ourselves off. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep creating this? So it just shows us where our boundaries are. And then generally we need to take action to release the energy of that feeling, to take a step, to do something. But when we do, it just clears the path.
Oh, absolutely. But holding on to anger or frustration or whatever just doesn't serve any purpose. And so that, I've applied that in a lot of places in my life over time, that it's like, this is ridiculous. This is not doing me any good. It's holding me back. And, whatever rationale I needed, it was enough to dissipate it. So it was like, I wasn't hitting that brick wall anymore. There wasn't a wall there anymore. There wasn't, there wasn't resolution that I may have wanted, but I didn't need it anymore. Sometimes anger holds you in place to can see what you don't need as opposed to what you actually do. So it was brilliantly done. I think you've given them such wonderful information and a guidebook on how to really work at making things happen within their reality. I mean, I would start with little things or big, it doesn't matter where you want to start, but I think the big deal is starting. Sometimes people, I'm going to, but it's not a matter of, something in the back of your head says, when is that going to happen? and it's like, I'm going to in the future, but if you do it now, then now becomes far more spectacular.
Absolutely. And, I just made Dare to Dream This Life Counts into an Audible because I'm a big Audible fan myself. So I listened to it again. It's like every so often I like to touch base with the information in there because it reminds me. Oh, yeah, right. Like all the places I've been, but all the beautiful people also contributed to the book. Like,
Yes.
I love their stories as well. And it was so fun to hear it read to me in somebody else's voice.
Well, I think, and you have so many quotes from so many people. I mean, I love even Walt Disney's, it's fun to make magic. It just, it's people that have learned to do something that has become second nature to them. And what you've done with this book is give people a blueprint that they can use until it becomes second nature to them, and then they can start to manifest the magic that's out there and available to all of us. And I think that you got here is wonderful reinforcement and wonderful step by steps, so that people are not going to say, well, this, and I think the one thing too you do emphasize is they have to do the exercises. They have to be consistent with them. It's not just a one-shot deal. It's something that you do over and over again that becomes habit, that then changes the way you approach life, which makes it easier to manifest.
One of the things I learned early on, because when I was writing this book, I think this was right before, well, I don't know, maybe The Secret came out like in 2009. I'm trying to remember what year, but
a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. And the big word back then was the law of attraction, right? And so everybody was sitting there closing their eyes and visualizing all the things they wanted and then coming out and going, oh, I'm so frustrated. Or I have one right here while we speak. I have a vision board. This is an amazing vision board because it's a feng shui. So that's a first I've ever done that, meaning I took the feng shui of my house and where my career, south, west, north, east, all the different places. And then I did my visions for each of those places. So I have my vision board here in my office, and still people would do that and then go, I'm so frustrated. So what I learned early on is law of attraction. It has the word action in it. And so it is not just about sitting back and doing something and vibrationally magnetizing to oneself. Yes, indeed, that works. And probably most of our lives are like that anyway, on automatic drive, right? But when it comes to like stepping out of your comfort zone, we must take action. We must write down. And of course, I go in the book, It's not just writing. It's not journaling at all. There's a
No.
very specific way that you factor in who you are, where you are, the dream, and all the stuff in between. And that's super important. And then the other piece of it is then to take those steps towards what it is you want to create. And it is an amazing journey, but the action is very important.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you want something to come into your life, you have to be able to open to it and to allow it to come, to draw it in. And that's work. That's inner work. There's no doubt about it. But it's not hard. It's just you're doing it with intent and knowing that it is going to bring something into your life. And what I have found of late is that knowing that something is coming in and not being able to anticipate what it is, but being totally, absolutely thrilled when something suddenly is there in front of me and it's like, huh, that's really cool. It's more than I would have imagined. And that's what I love. It's always more than if I had been specific. It's more than my specifics would have been. It's just allowing the universe to give me the fullness as opposed to limiting the universe. It's that one joke about how somebody was using the law of attraction to win $1 million or whatever. And, she was putting it out there. I won $1 million. I won $1 million. I won $1 million. And on the other side, they were saying, what are we going to do? She was slated to win 20 million, but all she wants is 1 million. So I'll give her the 1 million, and it's sort of like, oh my, I never thought about it that way.
That's good. I like that. And it's very true. It's very true. Like the universe can dream a much bigger dream for us than we can for ourselves. And that's the other good thing about taking action is that you're just in a very open position. And so you're saying, I'm heading towards this, but things can land in your lap that are a beautiful, sumptuous surprise.
Oh yeah. And I love it when magic happens, and it happens so frequently that when you get into this field, when you're working with energy, when you're working with your own being able to utilize your own skills and your own talents and your own energy, when you're working with it and opening to it, and in not only inviting but encouraging the flow of energy through you, it is quite amazing. And magic does happen so frequently that you get to the point where it is magic and it is happening and it is so cool. But you expect it, but it always surprises you, even though you expected it. And I think that's where I have, lately been, it's sort of like I'm working on something and then something happens that makes it so much better. And it's just like, holy cow. Well, now that's my text says often, how did you make that happen? And I said, whatever I did, I'm not stopping. Because, he said, well, you were just talking about wanting to do this and suddenly it's there. And I was talking about an author that I had on the show that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I wasn't sure where they were or anything, but I really, really, really wanted to get a hold of them. And as we were talking, an email from him came in, but he hadn't been watching the show. And my text said, how did you make that happen? And I said, well, I wanted to hear from him. It was important. And there it was. So it's kind of like when you put it out there and you do it right, it does draw magic to you. I just noticed our time, and I know you have another date that you have to get onto. So do you want to give out your website and your contact information to people so that they know where to find you and how to get to you?
Thank you. Well, my name, it's important to know how to spell it to find me. So it's Debbi with an I. There's no E at the end, Debbi with an I. And my last name, Dachinger, Dachinger. So you can go to debbie-dachinger.com. That's my website. Same on YouTube. My podcast, Dare to Dream, is at Debbi Dachinger. And then for anybody who is looking for a modality for healing, I am offering once a month a healing. It's different every single month. People come from all over the world. So, of course, there are replays. 75 to 90 minutes of a shamanic galactic healing. And I work on the whole group. That's at debbie-dachinger.com/healing. And finally, a free gift for everybody. I've got a free starseed report and video. If you'd like to know what your galactic ancestry is, learn more about your cosmic lineage, you can go to debbie-dachinger.com/starseed, debbie-dachinger.com/starseed.
Fantastic. I want to thank you so much for fitting us in and for sharing so much with us today.
Thank you. And all the books that I've written are on Amazon. Super easy. Thank you, Barbara. This has been amazing.
My pleasure.